This is Chapter 2 of Operations Management, Competitiveness, Strategy, and Productivity. It's a cold, hard fact. Better quality, higher productivity, lower costs, and the ability to respond quickly to customer needs are more important than ever. And the bar is getting higher. So this chapter focuses on three things that are separate but interrelated: competitiveness, strategy, and productivity. Competitiveness. So this is how effectively an organization meets the wants and needs of customers relative to others that offer similar goods and services. Organizations compete through some combination of marketing and operations functions. So what do customers want, and how can customers' needs best be satisfied? Marketing's influence. So marketing influence identify the customer wants or needs, they identify the pricing and quality, and they do the advertising and promotion. So this is how businesses compete using operations. It's the product and service design, cost, location, quality, quick response, flexibility, inventory management, supply chain management, service, and then the managers and workers. So why some organizations fail? Number one, they neglect operations strategy. They fail to take advantage of their strengths and weaknesses, and or strengths and opportunities, and fail to recognize the competitive threats. They have too much emphasis on short-term financial performance at the expense of research and development, and too much emphasis on product design and not enough on process design. They neglect investments in capital and human resources, fail to establish good internal communications and cooperation, and fail to consider customer wants and needs. So planning is hierarchical. So you start out at the top with the mission, you have goals, organizational strategies, functional strategies, and then tactics. The mission is the reason for an organization's existence. It answers the question, what business are we in? The goals provide detail and scope of the mission. This can be viewed as the organizational destinations. And then the strategy is a plan for achieving organizational goals. It serves as a roadmap for organizational destinations. The organizational strategy guides the organization by providing direction for an alignment of the goals and strategy of the functional units. The organizational strategy is a major success failure factor. So the FedEx mission statement is FedEx will provide superior financial returns for its shareholders by providing high value-added logistics, transportation, and related information services through focused operating companies. Customer requirements will be met in the highest quality manner appropriate to each market segment served. FedEx Corporation will strive to develop mutually rewarding relationships with its employees, partners, and suppliers. Safety will be the first consideration in all operations. Corporate activities will be conducted to the highest ethical and professional standards. So there's an interesting story related to the FedEx mission. It comes early in FedEx's history. One of the FedEx drivers arrived at the pickup box, these little boxes that look like a mailbox, and he discovered he didn't have the key to the box. And he knew that if he went back and got the key and came back and got the packages out of the box, the packages would not make it on the plane, and none of the packages in that box would make it the next day. He also knew that if he called back to the office and had someone bring a key, they wouldn't make it either. So what he did was he realized he had a wrench in his truck, so he unbolted the box and stuck the entire box into the truck, and then drove that back to the office where the key was. He was able to unlock the key, and all those packages made it onto the plane. So that story demonstrates this concept that getting those packages to the customer is a high priority. He could have gotten in trouble for unbolting the box, but the most important thing was to get those packages to the customer. Goals. The mission statement serves as the basis for the organizational goals. The strategy is a plan for achieving organizational goals and serves as a roadmap for reaching the organizational destinations. So organizationals have organizational strategies and functional strategies. So the organizational strategies support the organizational goals and mission. The functional strategies support the organizational strategies. And then there's tactics and operations. Tactics are the methods and actions taken to accomplish strategies, the how-to part of the process. And then operations is the actual doing part of the business. Core competencies. This is the special attributes or abilities that give an organization a competitive edge. To be effective, core competencies and strategies need to be aligned. So here's some sample organizational strategies, operation strategies, and companies that do this. So one example is low price as a strategy, or as an organizational strategy. Operational strategy is low cost. And examples are U.S. Post Office, FedEx, first class postage, and Walmart. Another one is responsiveness, short processing times, on-time delivery. So here the examples are McDonald's and FedEx. The next one is high quality. And you have a high performance design and or high quality processing. So the example here is Sony. Newness and innovation, 3M and Apple. Variety, flexibility and volume, Burger King and McDonald's. Service, superior customer service, Disneyland, IBM. And then location and convenience. Those are your supermarkets, your mall stores. The strategy formulation. Effective strategy formulation requires taking into account core competencies and then the SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Successful strategy formulation also requires taking into account order qualifiers and order winners. So an order qualifier that's the characteristic of your product or service that even allows you to compete. If you don't have an order qualifier, you are not even taken into consideration. And then order winners are those characteristics of an organization's good or service that cause it to be perceived as better than the competition. So the qualifier is the ticket into the competition, and then the winner is actually winning the competition. Environmental scanning is necessary to identify the internal factors, the strengths and weaknesses, and the external factors, the opportunities and threats. So here's some key external factors: economic conditions, political conditions, legal environment, technology, competition, and markets. And then some key internal factors: human resources, facilities and equipment, financial resources, customers, products and services, technology, suppliers another. So the operations strategy is the approach consistent with the organization strategy and used to guide the operations function. So here's some strategic operation management decision areas. So one decision is product or service design. So the design cost affects the cost, the quality, liability, environmental issues. Capacity, that's the cost, structure, flexibility. Process selection and layout, that affects cost, flexibility, the skill level needed, and your capacity. The work design affects your quality of work life, employee safety, productivity. Location affects your costs and visibility. Quality is your ability to meet or exceed customer expectations. Inventory, there's a cost for inventory, and if you don't have enough inventory, you have shortages. Maintenance, there's costs, there's equipment reliability and productivity. Scheduling, your flexibility and your efficiency. Supply chains, the cost, quality, agility, shortages, and vendor relations. And then projects, that affects your cost, new products, services, or operating systems. So there's a quality-based strategy that you can have. And this is a strategy that focuses on quality in all phases of the organization. So there's several reasons why a company might want to do this. One is if you're trying to overcome a poor quality reputation. If you're old enough, someone like me, you can remember back to when Japanese cars were considered poor quality. Today, Japanese cars are considered high quality. So they overcame that poor reputation quality by having a quality strategy. Another option is a desire to maintain a quality image. So Japanese car makers today want to maintain a quality image, so they continue with a quality strategy. A desire to catch up with the competition. Back when the Japanese cars were low quality, they were trying to catch up with the U.S. Now the U.S. is trying to catch up with Japan by having quality. And then a part of the cost reduction strategy. So if you have high quality, you have less rework, which then can save you money. Time-based strategies. So this focuses on the reduction of time needed to accomplish a task. So if you have this time-based strategy, you believe that costs are lower, quality is higher, productivity is higher, time to market is higher, and the customer service is improved. So here's some areas where organizations can achieve reductions based on a time-based strategy. There's planning time, product or service design time, processing time, changeover time, delivery time, and response time for complaints. Then there's Agile Operations. So this is a strategic approach that focuses on flexibility and allows you to prosper when there's continuous change in your environment. So it involves blending several core competencies: cost, quality, reliability, and flexibility. And then there's something called the balanced scorecard approach. This is a top-down management system that organizations use to clarify their vision and strategy and transform them into action. So you develop objectives, you develop metrics and targets for each objective, you develop the initiatives for each objective, and you identify links among the various perspectives. So there's finance, customer, internal, business growth, learning and growth, and then you monitor the results. So this is an example of a balanced scorecard. So you have the vision and strategy that's central to this, and then you have essentially objectives, measures, targets, and initiatives in each of these functional areas. What do we want to do with the customer, with finance, internal business process, learning and growth. Productivity. So productivity is the measure of the use of resources It's usually expressed as a ratio of input to output. So productivity measures are useful for tracking the operating unit's performance over time and judging the performance of the entire industry or country. So why productivity matters? So higher productivity is linked to higher standards of living. And then as an economy replaces manufacturing jobs with lower productivity service jobs, it's difficult to maintain high standards of living. Higher productivity relative to the competition leads to a competitive advantage. What that really means is you can offer lower prices or get higher profits for the same product. For an industry, high relative productivity makes it less likely to be supplanted by a foreign industry. So here's some productivity measures. The generic one is productivity equals output divided by input. And then you can have partial measures. Output divided by a single input, output divided by labor, output divided by capital. And then there's multi-factor measures where you could have output divided by multiple inputs, output divided by labor plus machine, output divided by labor plus capital plus energy. So a total measure would be the goods and services produced divided by all inputs used to produce them. So here's a sample calculation. You produce 5,000 units. The unit price is $30 per unit. Your labor input is 500 hours. The cost of labor is $25 per hour. The cost of materials is $5,000. And then the cost of overhead. So overhead is all those other costs, the managers, finance, marketing. So that is 2 times the labor cost. So you have 500 hours of labor. You're going to have 2 times that in overhead cost. So what is the multi-factor productivity? So you have the output divided by labor plus material plus overhead. So you have 5,000 units times $30 a unit. So that's your output. And then your input, you have your labor, which is $500 times $25 an hour. And then the material was $5,000. And then the overhead. So that's 500 hours times $25 an hour times 2. So you add all that up. And so that's 150,000 divided by 42,500 is 3.5294. So that's your productivity. So what's the implication of having a unitless measure of productivity? What that means is that productivity varies from industry to industry, from factory to factory. What is really useful is benchmarking your productivity with another competitor in the industry, or productivity from year to year. So productivity growth. So you take your current productivity minus previous productivity divided by previous productivity. So labor productivity in the ABC assembly line was 25 units per hour in 2014. In 2015, the labor productivity was 23 units per hour. What was the productivity growth? So in this case, it's 23 minus 25 divided by 25 times 100%. So your growth is minus 8%. Your productivity actually got worse. You went from 25 units per hour to 23 units per hour. So that's an example where you can compare this year's results to last year's results. You can compare this week's results to last week's results. So service sector productivity is really difficult to measure because it involves intellectual activities. It has a high degree of variability. A useful measure is process yield. This is where products are involved, is the output of a good product to the quantity of raw material input. Where services are involved, process yield measurement is also dependent on particular process. So the ratio of cars rented to cars available a given day, ratio of student acceptances to the total number of students approved for admission. Those are some examples. So the factors that affect productivity, your methods, your quality, management, technology, and capital. So how do you improve productivity? So you start by developing a productivity measure for all operations. You determine the critical bottleneck in the operations. Develop methods for productivity improvement. Establish reasonable goals. Make it clear that management supports and encourages the productivity improvement. You measure and publicize the improvements. So the last thing is, don't confuse productivity with efficiency. What's the difference between productivity and efficiency? It's on page 62 of your textbook in both the 11th and the 12th edition. So efficiency is a narrower concept that pertains to getting the most out of a fixed set of resources. Productivity is a broader concept that pertains to the effective use of overall resources. So the example is the efficiency perspective of mowing a lawn, giving a hand mower would be the best way to use the hand mower. So you can get more and more efficient in mowing your lawn with a hand mower. Productivity would include the possibility of using a power mower. So then you can compare the productivity of mowing the lawn with a hand mower versus mowing the lawn with a power mower. So this has been the summary of Chapter 2, and this concludes the lectures for Session 1.